Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. Speak a little bit about our campaign about the increasing of the bills. In our case, in the heating system in Spain, it's for all the system, but indeed the more important thing for us, it's a part of population that is not covered by the social rates and have problems of over-indebtedness by the design of the social tariff. So we are now to speak a little bit about that. Thank you to COFACE to give us the floor. And thank you to Kieran for staying here and put a more complex framework like the European work for tackle poverty, because now we need to push harder. And we have a big crisis with the gas prices in the next years. So we need to include all the population for a real green transition, and only we have the acknowledgement to improve their lives. So we are here for that. My name is Daniel Alvarez. I work in the area of financial inclusion and tackle poverty for the Isadora Duncan Single Parent Foundation. Our organization is founded in 1994 in León, Spain. Indeed, it's a single mother association. Now it's a foundation since 2006. And our aim is to achieve a single parent law for all Spain, because here we only have like regional little laws, and we don't have a real protection for single parent families. So we are working harder, and it's a job that for our president is more than 40 years working for that. So we are very focused now in that. Nowadays, we have two offices. We have the central office at León, and we have another office in Valencia, another big city. It's more than 1 million people in the Mediterranean here in Spain. It's very important because we have two realities of the country. One more in a part with the people is more elder, with more problems with their incomes, and another part in the Mediterranean area that is more dynamic. It's more close to the reality of Madrid or Barcelona. And we have the two sides of the reality in Spain. And we think it's important that to translate with the reality of the single parenthood. Our organization have active projects in that areas. We have a single parent center and a single parenthood observatory that is now developed. It's a project that started last year, and we are trying to put the reality of the single parent families in the scale of all the country. We have a very important migrant and gender violence program. It's funded for more than 15 years. I think it's very interesting. They are working harder with all the problems with migrants and all the new problems with gender violence that is manifesting in the reality of the country. We have another microfinance initiative. It's based in no interest loans, and it's focused in single parent families. It's a project that started in 2011 and now have a little problem because the most important part of the project is maintained with like a social bank. But now we have problems in Spain with this kind of initiatives. All the bank system now is private, so it's more harder had funding for that. We have a financial education or financial inclusion initiative. It's an important area of the foundation now. We are working harder too with economic balance and with the financial education. We are part of the national plan for financial education. In 2017, we are recognized with best initiative in financial education in Spain by the Bank of Spain. In the area of energy poverty, we have another project. It's very successful. We are now here for that. We work harder with other organizations from all the country. It's like a network. It's not a formal network, but here is Javier from ECODES, and I think it's more people from other entities. It's our initiative, as the ECODES initiative, was recognized in last year by like the ECODES is the best social action in the field of energy by the Naturgy Foundation, and we have the second one. So we are here with very important strategies and projects. And in the international networking, we are working in the ECOSOC with United Nations as entity of families. We are working with the GAMAG because we think that the Gender Alliance of Press, it's important too to put the reality or collective or focus area that is single parenthood. It's more than 80% is part are women. So we need to put the reality with this idea of the GAMAG. We are doing COFACE, that is very important for us in the European scale. We are doing ENOS, that is the European Network of Single Parent Families. That is a network that is working harder in the area of Germany, Austria, South Tyrol in Italy. And now in the last month, we are part of Financial Inclusion Europe that is working in the area of the CCD Directive and Credit Consumer Directive. That is another important area for single parenthood because over-indebtedness, it's an important field. And we think we need to be there and explain the reality of single parenthood to improve their lives. So that are now our projects, our main projects. We are working to with children, we are working to with another parts, but indeed now we are working in that areas. We are here for a breakfast Byte, for Facturas Imposible or Impossible Bills. It's a name given by my partner Silvia. She said it's very simple, and we think the same. It's a great name for Spaniards, and it's a campaign based in put the reality of the families. We have a problem in Spain to know all about the census of the buildings. The last real census is from 2001. In the last one in 2011, it's not a real census. It's like a statistic, only based in the 10% of the real buildings. So we don't have real information about the heating systems in the buildings of the people, and we don't know how they are using their heating systems. We don't know the number of heating systems, and we are using all the time statistics. That is very complicated because when you have a meeting with politics or people we have responsibilities, they say, what is the number of the people that affect this situation? And you say, I don't know, because in our case we always try to say the two things, and we say in 20 years ago it's more than 1 million with this problem, and maybe 5 million with a side effect problem. So it's important to put the focus without data, without real data, with a real census. We don't have all information to improve the life of the families. And if we think that it's needed a real green transition, if you don't have all the complete information for families and for society, it's not a real transition. We are making big numbers with big budgets to change all, but we are changing without sense in most of the cases because we don't have information. And it's the first that say, I have a project, but maybe it's not the most important project or most impact project. It's the first project that it's correct with the line. So we think it's needed a more information, a more specific information to put the eye in the families and to develop this initiative like Facturas Imposibles. Indeed, we are working with the IPA, that is the Energy Poverty Advisory Hub, that it's launched last year. And they have a call I recommend for all the countries in Europe. It's like 35 projects funded. It's for municipalities, but if you are working with a municipality, it's important. They provide technical advising. So we think it's part of the initiatives that we need to improve this kind of projects. How did the campaign start? We are going to start for the first part. During the pandemic year, all the prices are down. All these things are not important, but the 1st of June in 2021, Spain make a big change because we have a problem with our bill system, and we start a new law or a reform in 2019, but the pandemic arrives, so all it's stopped until the 1st of June. All the model of bills changed to new levies and fee scheme. The idea, it's a good idea at first. It's an scheme focused in energy efficiency and promote a more responsible use of the energy. We change it from a system that is not fair with the levies and fees for all, and we made one that it's more focused in the households and in the consumption responsible. At that first time, we think it's not bad, but in the reality, with a market with high prices, it's impossible for the families. Here is the scheme for a normal day. In the green color, it's the cheap hours. It's for the night. Then yellow, it's the intermediate price, and in red, the big problem for the families. But it's with the idea that you are working or you are in the school, so we don't have this big problem. At first, that is the price that we expect. We made a median from the last 5 years, and that are the prices with the new levies and fee scheme. It's like 4 cents of euro. It's the median of the price of the energy, and then you have the levies and the fees. That is the expected, but in real we are more than here. It's in January the median price is like 30 cents per kilowatt hour. So it's impossible because it's 6 times that we expect. During the first month, energy markets started a rising price process, and the government, because it's a big problem for the government, they changed the bill for first time in, I think, in 10 years. And in the first month, you received your bill, and you say, "Whoa, 20 euros more!" what a surprise! So the government make a new law in June, in the same month, only 24 days later, that the approval of the pass of the measure, and reduce the VAT from 21 to 10%, with the idea that it balance from, if you are paying 30 euros, you pay 34 euros, but now you pay 50. That measure is not bad, and say that only when the energy prices in the big market, in the OMIE, that is called here, that it's the common market for energy in Spain and Portugal, it's up to 45 euros by megawatt hour. In that prices, the VAT, it's only the 10%. If it's lower, it recovers the 21%. And it's important to explain that Spain have a very different market than in other countries. We have 2 principal energy markets for families. We have the electric market and the gas market. Everyone here have electricity, so we have 27 million of contracts in the electric market, and only 8 million people in Spain have gas for heating and hot water systems. So it's not so simple to make measures, because here we have gas for heating, we have diesel, we have coal, even in lots of buildings. We have 2 electric, we have heating our systems. So it's very heterogeneous, and it's complicated to make measures. In both markets, you have 2 options. The free market, you sign a contract with the company, and it's a contract for next 12 months. That it's simple, but it's much expensive than the regulated market. Regulated market, in the case of electricity, it's called PVPC, PVPC, it's called in Spain. Have different price for every hour and every day, and it's indexed by the OMIE, that it's the common market for energy in Spain and Portugal. We have Spain and Portugal are national energetic island in Europe. It's the case of all dictatorships. We have this kind of problem because we are not fully connected with the European network. So we have problems with when we don't have enough energy. So we are not connected. We are over. We have a very big system for our country because we have only 3%, 4% of the total consumption connected to the normal network of energy in the next countries like France. So we have this problem, and we have the problem that we have to archipelagos. I don't know now in English. We have two problem with regions like Canarias and Baleares, because Baleares have a cable that it's communicated with the peninsula, but Canarias not. And we have the other market called TUR, that it's for the gas, and it's another regulated market. The price is calculated by the government, and every 3 months they publish it, the new prices in the BOE, that it's called the normative bulletin here in Spain, that it's where the prices appears. That is important for the next steps in the reality of the energy markets. When the PVPC changed, we say, well, we are going to know how is the change for the families, and indeed for the families that have an electric heating system. Why? Because for years, when you have an electric heating system, you are paying two concepts in your, or two components in your bill. You have a part that is called power, and another is called the part of the consumption. In Spain, until 2021, the part of the power, it's very, very expensive. And with the new rule, they say it's better that the people pay more for the consumption, and it's more responsible, and it's more in the green transition. So here you have a table, and you can see what is the change. The principal change is that you have two powers, one for the day, one for the night. If you have a heating system, an electric heating system, you need a lot of power during the night, not during all the day. So if you are affected for this change, you can down your power during day. Here is the example, 345, that is a normalized power, and you maintain the 8 kilowatts for the night. So you pay for all the year this, that is like 150 euros. And in the normal bill from 2011 to 2021, you pay near or close 400 euros. So when you see that, you say, whoa, if the prices for the energy and the consumption are maintained, it's a better option for the families, and you maybe can save like 50, 100 euros per year. It's not so bad if the price is maintained. But the reality is more complex. In our case, it's very, very complex. Why? Because with these two markets, we have 27 million of contracts in the electric market. 16.2 are in the free market. Free market is it's more expensive for last 10 years than the regulated, but not, it's a little difference. It's not a 5 or 10%. It's more close to 30% than to a more close total. It said when you have a bill in free market, you are paying close to 800 euros. And when you have a bill in the regulated market, you are more close to 500 euros or less. So it's very, very expensive. In Spain, all the organizations that work in the third sector in the last 5 years are working, changing people from the free to the regulated market. And that with this little change, the people save a lot of money without doing anything. With the same pattern of consumption without do anything new with improving anything. So the profit for that companies are huge, are incredible. And if you need a social rate, you need to be in the regulated market. And now it's more easy to be in the regulated market, but all the organizations that work with that have a big battle with that, with these big companies for years to improve the system and to make more simple for the people. And indeed, it's very complicated work with that. So the case is that one ministry, Nadal, it's one of the conservatives, say that if he make an advice to his mother, his mother would be in a regulated market. And with that, the people maintained the contracts in the free market. So it's very, very hard to work in that market. And we have bad practices, but people doing things that are not legal. And it's very complicated to understand that and to say you are playing with vulnerable people. Now the people have sensibility about, are sensitive, sorry, with these cases. But during the first part of the crisis, after 2008, the part more hard in Spain, that was 2012, 2013, it's incredible. It's a scam, another scam. The people arrive to the foundation or to these organizations with over the indebtedness and with contracts, with services. Like I'm one enterprise. I have anything. You are paying for everything, and it's incredible. We see bills that are amazing. If you see, if they are not playing with family, like a joke, that is incredible, like a joke. But they are playing with families and in their lives. So now we have a more protective law, but it's not enough. And here is the example. So we have these two markets, and the regulated market don't have any promotion. You don't have advertise. The public television didn't have any space to explain that. And I think from 2011 to 2020, that is very responsible for our country. Now, no, because now it's more expensive than the free one, but it's the first time in 10 years, sorry, in 11 years, that is the situation. And now, yes, and now explain that it's more expensive. That is the difference. And it's not because the information is needed now. So we think it's important that the people understand that we have two markets in the same market of electricity and in the same market of the gas. During last week, we are making some prospective studies about the gas market, and the prices in free market are 3-4 times for the same service. And the people now it's renovating with these companies in free market. So we are launching a campaign, and during next week for the European Energy Poverty Week, we are going to make a workshop to improve that, because that's all. At that moment during summer, our beneficiaries, the families that are working with us, started to text us with messages about the rising prices, because it's all the day in the news. And if it's possible to have a better option to reduce their bills. In the case of our energy poverty area, a lot of families started to send out bills that are increasingly highly, and then we have see the prices in a chart. And we started this prospective study for the bills during winter in 2021, and discovered a big problem. That is what if we have a winter like we are having, with 200 euros per megawatt, the people is paying like 14 cents per kilowatt hour. So we have expensive energy prices, high consumption in winter months. it's more harder for people that only have electric heating system. They are very inefficient. We have a very big problem because if they have this kind of heating system, because there are no really heating systems, it's a radiator. It's not a heating system. It's an emitter. It's not real. They are wasting money. They are burning money all the day. And limited energy subsidized. We have a very real problem with that. Based in a reason from the government that it's needed for the green transition. But the people in vulnerable situation, they don't have that real problems. The money limits the waste and the consumption. The people, if they are unlimited, they are not wasting unlimited energy. During 4 or 5 years, our social tariff don't have limits, and the median is less of waste than now. So that not have real sense. It's only a way to say we are not going to subsidize more energy because it's expensive for us. During the summer, we make this calculator to put the people, their reality in their bills, because our regulated bill designed by the government gives you all the information about your tax and your levies, but you don't have the correct number that you pay for your kilowatt hour in every step. So we make this calculator to have your real price, and here here it's an example, but the people is paying during last 3-4 months like 30 to 40 cents per kilowatt hour, when the normal pay for a night kilowatt hour in the last years are 4 cents, 6 cents. So it's impossible. It's paid 5 times. Anyone can make this possible. Now here we have our social rate scheme. Here is the bono social, it's called in Spain. It's a discount from the 25 to the 50% given to consumers to help them pay their electric bills. We have another level, because here all in Spain we know that we have 2 levels, vulnerable and high vulnerability, but we have social exclusion, that it's a more vulnerable scheme, and the people only pay the 50% of, sorry, I have an error. It's not 25 to, it's 25 to, but the normal 2-1 system are 25% for vulnerable and 40% for highly vulnerability. We have another scheme here, but it's a part of the social services in every region. Only Galicia, in 17 regions, only Galicia have this system implemented. And you need that the company pay the 50% and the social services, not the people, not the family, pay the other 50%. And that is very complicated because you need to put budget every year to pay that. And that is very complicated. This scheme, it's from 2017. We are in 2022, and in the first year that it's possible that it's during 2021, and it's Galicia that the first region that passed this system of social services helps. So we are in a very bad situation. Galicia is only 3 million people. We are in a country with 47 million people. So that's hard. Here we have the scheme. We have 3 kind of manners or ways to be in the social rate. By income, if you are pensioner, or if you are a big family. You have an increasing of your income if you have a disability problem, or you have a dependency problem, you are basic gender violence victim or terrorist victim, or if you are a single parent family. That it's an achieve the foundation it's happy that this achieved it's granted. And it's important because you don't need any documentation to do that because we don't have a law. So you present the normal process. And if you are single parent, you have a little more income limit here, you can see. And this is calculated with a PREM, that it's like a median for all the social services system. Here it's a regulated market. We are talking about 45 euros per the reduced VAT. You see here, November 2020, December, January. January, we have a big problem in Madrid with the snow and all is a madness. But then the most cheap month in the historic series, that was February 2021. And then we have here the problem until September. Here we have 100 euros megawatt hour, so that it's impossible during August. With that, the government started another set of measures to reduce the impact in both markets. They know that the gas market is pushing up the electric market, so they say, well, we have a problem in the winter. So they make a tax reduction in the special electricity tax. We have less extraordinary profits for hydroelectricity and nuclear energy until March of this year. We have energy generation tax suspended until June 2022. And we endorsement the basic minimum supply that it's part of the national strategy to tackle for poverty, avoiding cut option for vulnerable families from 4 to 10 months. That is interesting, but they limited the power provided in only for the supplies with less than 3.5 kilowatts. That is the same problem. We have people with heating system that they can turn on because it's not enough power. And it's part of the social justice measures, this kind of things. And power is not a big problem for the companies. We are overpowered. We have an incredible network. We don't have any problem with the power, but they put this kind of things in a legal text. And if you have this heating system in electric, you have a big problem. The regulated gas price have an incredible measure for us. The example for the electric market, that it's block during winter until March, the regulated market. The most important part of the bill, it's the price of the consumption during the winter months. So they put a limit. They only pushed like a 5% in the last revision. We have now another during March that maybe it is going to increase in a 15%, but you have all the winter with a kilowatt hour and between 4 and 5 cents. And that's great for the population, and they do that with a deficit. It's a problem. We are in debtness. We are doing debt with that, but we will pay for years. But it's more fair for us. With that measure, we think that it's a good example to put in the electric market, and they did it for all the people in regulated market, without income schemes, without bono social, without anything. It's for all. So we think if you are doing that for all, maybe you need to do that for the people in social rate in electric market. So that is the reality of the prices. Do you remember? We are here when the government say we need more measures, that is September and that is October. We are close to 200 euros in the big market in OMIE for the megawatt hour, that in a normal condition, it's in 40. It's 5 times the price. And that is the reality for now. We are here. November and December, it's even more expensive. And now here it's like 200 euros. It's in the same for January. and in February it's closed. So the government launched another 2 set of measures until 28 February. So this month, maybe we have a big problem. All the supplies, gas, electricity, and water, it's avoided the cutting in families in vulnerable situation, that all the families that have this condition have social rate. It's the only way to have this avoiding system. And they increasing highly the discount for the vulnerable families from 25 to the 60 and from 40 to 70% until March 21. And if you know, I say we have 3 schemes. They don't do anything for the people that are in the 50%. I think they don't know now that we have this system of protection. Because if you make a law and you say the people that have a 25 discount now have a 60, and the people with a 40 now have a 70, the people that have had a 50%, maybe they don't pay. But it's anything in the law, and they don't have any measure for the people that it's more vulnerable than the highly vulnerable people. So that is interesting, because I think they have a problem of understanding of their own tools to tackle for poverty. With the last law, we have another measure that is called bono térmico. The bono térmico, it's another, like a little pay that the regional governments give to the people in bono social. And they are saying that they are increasing in 90 euros per household. But that measure have, in the best of the cases, 1 year and 1 month of delay in one case. And we are paying now, during December, Catalonia is paying the bono térmico from the year 2019. So we have 2 years of delay. Here is the bono térmico. It's about where you live. If you live in the blue zone, you receive a lot of money. The most important pay for energy. And if you live in Canarias, in the red, you receive less. The first it's 25 euros with the red color, and in this blue color it's like 125 euros. With this change, the people in blue colors will receive 375 euros, and the people here in the red color 35. With that scenario, we started the campaign. We made a call to all the organizations that work with full poverty, or reference organization that we met that work for poverty. Here it's Avio, that it's the Technical University of Madrid. It's a very interesting group of architects that are working harder with vulnerable people. ECODES, that it's one of the reference organizations in environmental situations here in Spain. EcoSurveys, one of the leaders in all the projects of full poverty in Europe. IOLUZ, that it's an energy cooperative place sitting in Valencia. They work harder. They are very, very compromised with the green transition. INTIAM, that it's Manel Rossi, one of the figures of reference in Catalonia of green transition and full poverty. SOCAIRE, that it's another NGO from South Madrid that is working amazingly with the people, making workshops with it. It's incredible, the work that they are doing. ACA, that is other of the reference here in Spain, Ciencias Ambientales. The most important organization, I think, in social affair in the case of full poverty, that is APE, that is Alianza contra la Pobreza Energética, is from Barcelona. They have now a little sister in Madrid. I think will be a success. And Isadora Duncan. And with this team, we have 2-3 meetings, and we say we need to send a letter, we need to start a campaign to change that. So we sent a letter to the Green Transition Ministry. We say that it's impossible to do that, to do this winter for these families. We have a problem because the people that have this bono social, they need to be at the regulated market. The regulated market is in this 40, 30 euros per kilowatt, and the free market is in 40 euros per kilowatt. And if you are in bono social because you have a problem with the cat, you need to be at this PVPC, and you have a problem of over-indebtedness because you don't have the problem of the cutting, but you have the problem that you don't pay the bills. And with the pandemic, we have another exemption. So we meet people that didn't pay the bills during 2 years. And the last bills are not 60, 100 euros, are close to 400 euros, 500 euros. And if you make the total, it's like 3,000 or more. And that is impossible. And it's the reality to be protected by the system. And the last are the more expensive bills. And you have a bad service, and you don't have your house in a warm climate. You are living in a very poor situation. So we think in the letter that it's interesting to delimitate the total of kilowatt hour that you can waste in bono social, and maybe for the families with electric heating system that are not in a income scheme initial, in the quality to be in the social rate, maybe increasing the incomes, because we have the same problem. A lot of people that have this reality. So we start the campaign, we make these materials explaining the evolution of the prices. We make these kind of things. I think this one, it's very important. You say, you can see how many you pay for a same bill in 2 years different, and what is the amount of the bono social, that it's like 25 euros of discount, because if it's limited. So you are paying close to 2 times or 3 times the last year bill. And this is the problem with the limits of the consumption, that it's very hard for a lot of families. So we have coverage from the press. We are in the national media, in local media, in another sector media, and in a very important website for the people. We have a campaign in YouTube, and we have a big meeting called Los Peligros del Invierno during 21st of December. And we have a problem. And the problem is, I don't do a slide because it's complicated, but we have a problem with the press. When you go to a journalist and you say, we have this problem, and it's a problem that affects more than 1 million families. It's not a problem that affects 1, 2, 3, 4. They want that you provide a family in a bad situation, maybe with children, maybe without gas or without electricity, and they want to record them to put and stigmatize in the news, in a national news. We don't know why. We have this problem with the public television, one of the 2 big corporate media here in Spain of the news, and they provide all the coverage, but only if we provide a family. And we are part of the Gama. We have a very hard position in that. In Isadora, sorry, we think that it's important. Don't stigmatize the people. You are living a situation, yeah, but the problem is not for your family. The problem is for the society. So we need to explain that to the media. We need to explain that to the journalists, and they need to know the reality of the people, to say, no, the important thing is the situation for the families, the global situation, not that this family is in a bad day, No, because anyone needs that. You don't know, you need your neighborhood and you say, whoa, that one it's in a bad situation. No, that is not, it's not fair. That is not a society. It's a jungle. So let's say me that maybe we are going to finalize in a positive way. So a best practice from Portugal. I love Portugal. They have 1 hour less and are very close to us. We are in Leon. We are 100 kilometers to the border. So in 2016, Portugal make a big change. They put an automatic social rate. And if you see here, it's like a snake. Yeah. And that snake, it's provided by the magic of a real brilliant measure. That it's, you don't need papers, you don't need go anywhere. If you have this situation, automatically, without go anywhere to say, I have a problem with my energy bill, I am poor, I need that. No, you don't need anything. It's automatic. And if you see that, there are no reason. In Spain, it's supposed that more than 4.5 million people will be affected by the law of the bono social. And now we have like 3 million. So we are in only the 50% of the people that have this problem. So if Portugal can do that, maybe anyone can do that. So I love this kind of things, and I have the report. I'm going to text us. It's a problem in the sorry for that. If you see the chart, okay, it's in the page 22. They have a problem with the years, but if you read, it's for the 2022. So give me a second. I'm going to share with you.
So this is the Portuguese information?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Here is the problem, because it's in quarters. It's a problem with addition, but here it's 1, 2, 3, 4. And here it's the big change. 2016, you put, in this case, the increasing here at 283% of people increasing in only 1 month. So we think the solutions are there, and that's all for us. We are available for anything you need about full poverty. Thank you for the flow. Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Kiara. Thank you, Bettina, and thank you all. And we're here for anything you need.
I wanted to start first and foremost by saying why I'm here and like why I care about this. So it's great to be sharing a panel with Isidora Duncan as well, and Daniel, because I grew up in a single parent family as well, and kind of I was born in India and grew up in Northern Ireland. So one of my earliest memories is suddenly realizing that it was very cold all of a sudden, and it's like kind of, it's almost naturalized energy poverty, because you know, you'll always wear a jumper, or you'll wear a jacket, you'll maybe like ration, you know, the heating when you're at like your family home, and it's kind of like this stuff is kind of like a normal behavior, or almost like a politeness. But it's only when you kind of start to like look at like why is it naturalized that you start to get maybe a little bit angry or a little bit curious. And then kind of if you look at kind of moments of crisis, like what we have right now with the gas price spikes and volatility, and you look at kind of countries like the UK, where people are being offered, you know, maybe a £200 loan from a Klarna chancellor, or kind of like an almost like loan shark response from the government that should be helping them, you suddenly realize that, you know, something more is needed, and like a different story is needed to be told. So like, I think this is where the work with Friends of the Earth and kind of the Right to Energy Coalition kind of comes into this. Fundamentally, if I want people to take anything away from this is to say that when we talk about energy poverty and if we talk about the current crisis, we're talking about impoverishment. So kind of like when the cost of living is going up and your household income is, being taken away from that, you're being disempowered. It's not, I think Daniel picked up on this really well in his presentation. It's not an individual failing to be faced with these problems. This is like a deep structural issue. And kind of that's basically one of the most important things that can be taken away from this. It's like as if someone's making gravity that much heavier. Your life gets that tiny bit more difficult with each kind of failed response or lack of response. So like, yeah, I think that's kind of like the starting point that I wanted to go from. Right now, Europe is facing a winter of disconnections, and like that can be self-disconnection, where people kind of ration their own energy usage. And there's horrendous stats, like 50 million Europeans are unable to adequately heat their home at the minute. So it's kind of like fundamentally people are being forced into a choice, and like that choice often boils down into heating or eating. And like that's a horrendous situation to be put into. It's like fundamentally, we're here to imagine an energy system that works for families. We're here to imagine an energy system that works for our communities. We're here to imagine an energy system that works for people and for planet. And when we imagine that, we don't see the current system, do we? It's kind of fundamentally, we see something that is a political choice or a series of political choices that require political response. It's like we can't be the ones that kind of take an individual response or burden to the inability to adequately light, heat, or cool like our homes sufficiently when things are only being made worse. So I'm going to hit you with like a few statistics, and it's really important that we recognize that behind each of those statistics is a human story and a material reality being faced by millions across the continent as we speak. So 50 million Europeans already live in energy poverty, and this is kind of, at the cusp of like the current crisis. With this gas crisis, 80 million more are estimated at risk. So a lot of people who necessarily wouldn't consider themselves vulnerable are now on the cusp of facing energy poverty. This compounds onto those who are already marginalized or marginalized by society, or because fundamentally energy poverty has so many different facets, and a lot of them tie into kind of how structural injustice is structured in like our societies and economies already. So I looked at a presentation from Habitat for Humanity Bulgaria that happened at the recent Right to Energy forum last month. And they were looking at the rates of winter fuel rationing of, like being in, cutting back on heating your home for lack of funds. And in certain minority groups in Bulgaria, it was double kind of people in a similar income bracket who weren't part of that minority. So it's kind of, you can see that there's like this interplay. And like, if you look at kind of the energy poverty profile across Europe, it's different with different housing stock and different geography. And so when we think about it in terms of an issue faced by families, it's faced by every single generation. So you have single parent families, the majority of which are female led. And like, if you're living in rental accommodation, your experience of energy poverty is going to be bound up in power imbalances and kind of split incentives between landlord and tenant. If you're an elderly couple living on pension and your experience of energy poverty means it's because you can't afford the upfront costs of renovating your home or winterproofing it, that's a very different experience as well. So it's kind of important to kind of draw out the human complexity behind like the figures that are appearing on the screen right now. So it's linked to a public health cost of like about 194 billion, And this sadly is linked to 100,000 premature deaths per year in the EU. Again, it's a political choice and it requires a political response. So I thought the best thing to do would be to maybe kind of try and ground it in some stories from across Europe. So I'll start off in Catalonia. So this is from AP, which Daniel touched on in his presentation. So basically, there was a successful campaign in Catalonia to kind of have debts written off for, I think, 34 or 35,000 families. And this was kind of a huge campaign, I think, that culminated in 2021. And fundamentally, a lot of people were faced, so like Victor, as you can see in the top left, who's given this testimony, a lot of people were faced with debts that they couldn't pay. So pretty much everything that Daniel's covered, but also kind of the support that they're entitled to by the local government and the state was overwhelmed and flooded by the sheer volume of responses and needs. So it's only by coming together as a movement that 28 million euros of debt was wiped off. And, so this is kind of like, I think 73% of the energy debt in that area that was accumulated since 2015. So if you look at kind of like the lives of, the thousands of people and thousands of families that were affected by that, kind of living in fear of, like, say, debt collection or not being able to kind of invest in things that make like life good and worth living, like that's something that's huge. Another kind of situation is kind of maybe a case study that we've seen from like Belgium. So it's Camille, so she's in the top right, and it's kind of what do you do if your home is suddenly becoming unlivable around you, but you cannot afford the cost of upkeep to kind of keep it free from mold, to keep it well insulated, and to keep it waterproof and watertight. So like this combined with the rising high price of heating and firewood kind of keeps people like stuck in a place in which like their energy bills are going to rise if they can't afford pretty serious upfront costs. So there's like another network in Belgium called the RAD, who basically have helped people kind of get insulation, get double glazing, and kind of build a movement in the network to kind of break from social stigma as well. Because like I think fundamentally when we deal with issues in our housing, it's intensely personal. And so like everything that Daniel was saying earlier about the hazard of kind of being asked to kind of go on the national media and explain things about your situation that maybe you don't feel comfortable doing, it's kind of, this is kind of the human element, but these are also kind of movements that have sprung up in light of a serious issue that we now kind of embody within like the right to energy movement. So fundamentally, we bring together like a diverse and unique range of stakeholders dealing with energy poverty at EU, national, and local level. So this is like a red and a green coalition. So it's kind of trying to house climate justice and social justice in one place in quite a unique, kind of like safe and kind of friendly learning environment. It's kind of like, it's like there's like definitely a strength and diversity that we have here because we represent trade unions, we represent anti-poverty organizations, environmental NGOs, health organizations, social justice groups, energy cooperatives, and social housing providers. So like this is like a depth and a range of experience that then like allows us to kind of come up with pretty hard-hitting material shared analysis of why the problems that are so multifaceted on their own and so separated by various geographies and differing kind of inequalities and injustices, how they can be bundled together into clear asks for advocacy, and like how we can empower people across Europe through learning from each other's examples, whilst pushing kind of for policy at an EU level and kind of trying to influence the EU's kind of Green Deal. So like right now, I think as Daniel has pointed out a lot in his presentation already, like we face exploitative energy markets. So again, profit is put before people and planet. 75% of buildings in the EU are energy inefficient. And so that basically puts us in a trap where you are effectively, like there was the comment in the chat earlier, that the best form of energy or the cheapest form of energy is the energy that you don't use. But if you're in inefficient housing and you don't have the upfront costs to do anything to fix that, then you're stuck and your energy bills are only going to rise. Fundamentally, we have then like another trap, which is kind of fossil fuel subsidies. So it's kind of, there's like a lock-in effect where gas heaters and gas infrastructure is installed in homes, and it has like a 30-year kind of lifespan. And any green legislation that or price shocks like what we're seeing with the current gas crisis just means that people that can't afford the upfront costs of greener solutions or access to renewables or access to energy communities or collectives that can help them foot that bill are then stuck using an infrastructure that's going to put them at the mercy of like a market that's already shown that it'll put the prices up as much as possible. So beside this, we have rising prices, rising misery, but also record profits for companies like BP, Shell, and Total. So it's something that we really need to take as like in like a holistic approach. And then, like as I've touched upon, everything filters through and compounds on broader injustices that people face. So like whether it's systemic racism, ableism, sexism, or kind of the corrosion of the social safety net and the imposition of austerity measures where people that further drive vulnerable people into all sorts of financial precarity. This is all very context specific, varies across Europe, but fundamentally we have managed to come together as a coalition and forge like a common narrative around like what is needed to tackle energy poverty across Europe. So like we recently had the Byte Energy Forum in January, which was basically our biggest to date. So it was kind of like bringing together EU policymakers, but also kind of grassroots movements from regions such as Catalonia or from kind of like Bulgaria to kind of like try and work out kind of how we expand movements and kind of build and like channel like grassroots power, but also kind of like influence legislation at the highest levels. Like I've talked a lot about the problem and I've talked a lot about how we understand the problem, but like I think maybe the most interesting thing that people might want to be looking at is solutions. So kind of right now, we're looking at kind of like bans on disconnections. And so like if you're in a situation like in the UK, a lot of people are on electricity meters. So like you get a phenomenon of self-disconnection, where if you can no longer afford to pay or top up your electricity bill, you're considered to have taken yourself away from the electricity grid in effect. So like this is something that like we're looking to kind of get a ban on. As an immediate response to the gas crisis, we're looking at a free band of energy for all as a coalition. So like we'll have a position paper with like a fresh set of demands out very shortly for Energy Poverty Week. We're looking into like energy debt. So it's like what AP did in Catalonia, because like fundamentally, this is one of the most pernicious things, or kind of like one of the most stressful elements of energy poverty, is kind of dealing with often very privatized companies and kind of like their various forms of tactics for kind of dealing with or recovering debt. So it's kind of like, this is something that is so important. an anti-discriminatory pricing, and looking at social tariffs, and then kind of in response to the gas crisis, looking at windfall taxes. So like this is something that's kind of getting huge traction in the UK right now amongst our coalition members there. And then we're trying to like kind of redivert fossil fuel subsidies to renewable schemes. So again, avoiding kind of the phenomenon of being like locked into an ever increasing energy setup in your home. And then kind of putting kind of like time limited, visible, conditional, long-term increases in tax on fossil fuels and investment solutions. So I think this is where we'd value like the questions and my feedback in the chat is kind of what is the balance of reform and what is the balance of revolution in terms of like how we approach kind of like a system that actually, again, puts families, puts communities, puts human beings and human welfare at its center, and which also centers kind of the needs to kind of like challenge climate catastrophe. So it's like for us, it's like both sides, two sides of the same coin. When we talk about kind of going beyond the current crisis, I think like if we're looking at long-term solutions, fundamentally deep renovation programs, these effectively unlock like a series of wins from employment to kind of cutting like household expenditure on bills through greater energy efficiency and kind of reducing the amount of like carbon that's given off by like our building stock. So it's kind of this something that is like a huge like long-term investment in challenging one of the key root causes of energy poverty across Europe. I think like subsidizing and kind of like lowering the barriers to kind of accessing renewables for heating and cooling, especially for low-income groups, and kind of like shifting away from gas boilers as kind of a first resort or kind of a resort at all is going to be like another kind of like medium but kind of like root solution. And like another thing is kind of when we think about energy, we also need to have a right and a say in like how it's produced and how it's distributed. So it's like community energy ownership and energy democracy. These are key. So it's like we cannot build a new system whilst replicating a top-down or hierarchical system that has shown itself to have basically been liable to not work in people's favor in the past. So we want to empower people to kind of have ownership of kind of like their energy system, or kind of to have like a say in its governance and say in its oversight, and kind of get to decide things instead of, you know, investing in shareholder profits or dividends. Maybe, you know, a more democratic approach would see infrastructure prioritized, or kind of differential kind of like more fair pricing. So like that's something that I think like it's like really important to kind of embed in any new system that we build. And then finally, it's definitions and data, because like I think there's a vested interest in keeping this as fragmented as possible. So like we need to have like clarity on like what energy poverty is, what its indicators are, and kind of make sure that every country is working from kind of like these measurements, so like we can actively see exactly what the scale of the problem is, and like what you know, how targeted like our solutions can be. So like fundamentally this will all combine hopefully into a mindset shift. So it's kind of like we no longer can be passive consumers of fossil fuels. We currently see with like the crisis around us, and with the need for a more socially just settlement, that like there's an opportunity to be active, to be energy citizens, and there is an opportunity to see energy itself as a right, and that the energy that we have a right to should be clean and it should be affordable. So in terms of kind of like the EU level advocacy, we're currently looking at the Social Climate Fund and seeing it to be quite overstretched. and kind of not currently up to the scale of the challenge that's needed from it. So we need substantially more funding. We're calling for more, let's say, like long-term kind of funding and kind of a decoupling of it from the emissions trading scheme, which may see almost a trap where the price of fossil energy goes up as people are being stuck on gas boilers, whereas like not enough money is being put in to provide a just transition towards like more renewables. So it's kind of like the danger of like a failed social climate fund is you have on one hand green elitism, and on the other hand people with ever rising bills who will need ever more state support in order to kind of avoid being stuck or entrapped. So like that's like the risk that like and the danger that we're calling out. And then the other thing is key is like on buildings. So it's like renovation wave legislation. So it's kind of like getting financial support and requirements for tailored deep renovation programs. We need subsidized renewable programs. We need to phase out fossil fuel infrastructure. And as Friends of the Earth Europe, like our position is fossil-free homes by 2030. So I'm going to leave it at that because I feel like I've spoken for a very long time. And I could probably keep speaking for a long time, but I'm really interested in what everyone else has to say too. So I will leave it there. I'll post my email in the chat. So just feel free to get in touch if you have any further questions after this as well. But thank you very much.